Alfred Hurdon is a 36-year veteran first responder. He has experience as a police officer, as a firefighter, as an EMT. He's worked in hospitals, in the trauma centers, in the ER centers. He's served our community in just about every way you can imagine. And he's also gone through some of the most incredible hardships that a human could ever face in their lifetime. He has lost his daughter to a vicious murder. He also, very recently, 8 months ago, while on duty, got hit and was so badly injured that he was paralyzed. This left him paralyzed for 2 months, to the point where they were hoisting him up in a bed. He couldn't shower. He couldn't do anything for himself. He couldn't move. The doctors told him that he was never going to be able to walk again. Despite these hardships, Alfred is an absolutely beautiful person. And what we're doing here is we're trying to do a life story on him, and we're trying to highlight the amazing part of police officers, the people that serve our community. We're trying to open up that conversation about mental health. There's so many officers out there that are struggling. There's so many people out there that are avoiding having tough conversations like me and Alfred had today, getting into the real shit that people go through on a day-to-day basis, the real shit that the job brings, that life can bring. It's all encapsulated in this video. And my family, the Gutierrez family, we're doing this in honor of my dad, Sergeant Ramon Gutierrez Jr. For those of you who don't know, I lost my father on January 24th of 2022 to a drunk driver. My dad was working on duty, and his loss has inspired my family to live life for something bigger than us. And Alfred is one of those people that really inspired us to go down this path. His story, the things he's overcome, how passionate he is about helping his community and his fellow officers. That's why he showed up and talked about the things that he talked about today. So I hope you guys appreciate his story. I hope you guys can get a real insight into the incredible man and the incredible first responder that Alfred Hurdon is. And we hope that y'all enjoy the story. So I'm sorry I didn't introduce myself. My name is Alfredo Gutierrez. This is the first episode of the 623 show. And let's get straight into it.
Behind my badge is a heart like yours. I bleed, I think, I love, and yes, I can be killed. And although I am but one man, I have thousands of brothers and sisters who are the same as me. We stand watch together, a thin blue line, protecting the prey from the predators, the good from the bad. We are the police.
X39 is in pursuit of a code 37 vehicle west on.
Alfred Hurdon, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
I'm so excited to have you on. Honestly, the first thing I wanted to get right into it. The first thing that I wanted to talk about and that I wanted to ask you about is basically I wanted to set the stage for why we're here, right? You're a 36-year veteran first responder, right? You have so much experience in this field, and you can really speak to how much the climate has changed over the past 36 years, right? So not only for you guys working the job, but the way the public views you, right? All the stuff that surrounds policing, right? So can you speak a little bit to how much policing has changed over, these past 36 years that you've been involved in as a first responder?
It has changed a lot. There was a time, and I actually started full-time policing as a police officer in the year 2000.
Okay.
From 2000 to 2016, 2017, we didn't wear body cameras.
Yeah.
We had no dash cameras.
Oh, wow.
And after 2014, with the death of Brown in St. Louis, there was a radical change in policing, and it started in that year. Body cameras were being issued like candy. And there was a lot of opposition both from the public as well as law enforcement. You don't trust us now? We gotta have a body camera because you don't trust what we've been doing for all these decades. So it was a mentality thing. It was a mental change that took place.
My dad didn't want to wear it.
Believe me, I didn't want to either. But I will tell you this. From that point forward, it changed policing because it actually showed people how we were really doing the job. It exposed to the public exactly what we had been seeing for decades. Now they're seeing it, okay? And it gave them a little bit better understanding of how we see things in the eyes of a law enforcement officer, right? It's not just black and white.
Yeah.
We're dealing with people. There's emotions that are involved. So when you say change in policing, it's been a big, drastic change. And then the public's view on what happened with now social media coming into play.
Yeah.
And live TV or live Facebook, live Instagram, live this, live that, to where there's no opportunity for us to explain what happened. They get a version of a situation, usually after the fact, and they want to judge us on that.
Yeah.
So policing has changed a lot, and it's all about the mindset. The mindset of the public, of the people we protect and serve, but also a mindset for law enforcement and how we have to view things and how we have to now change, as they say, change with the time.
Got you. And have you seen a change in how hard the job has been on officers, on your fellow officers, on yourself, right? Has it always been very, very difficult, or is it just continuing to get more and more difficult with how the climate has changed towards police officers?
It's always been rough. I'm going to explain to you real briefly. Not much has changed with bad guys and good guys.
Yeah.
Bad guys still do the bad thing, right? The good guys still have to catch the bad guys, right? The difference is now that not only do we have to deal with the crime that's being done, but we also have to worry about how the individual public is going to see what we're doing. Because now it's not just a matter of us getting on the stand and testifying to what we did and what we saw and what we reported, but now we have to fight the interpretation of the community and how they view what we do. We're still doing the same things. We're still putting bad guys in jail, right? We're still trying to catch the bad guys who commit the really heinous crimes. That hasn't changed. But the viewpoint and how it's perceived now, that's the one thing that we have to combat. And that's what's changing consistently and constantly in today's society. So how they view what we do and how it's perceived is what is changing how we do policing now. It's still the same. They got the bad guys that we have to catch.
Yeah. And the next major thing that I wanted to focus on is y'all's mental health, right? As police officers, that's something that is not talked about very much, right? Wasn't talked about back then when you first started.
Nope.
Still not really talked about now. It's always been a kind of a taboo subject, even within the police community itself, right? And that's kind of why we're here. So can you speak to why you feel it's so important for you to share your message and for you to reach out to those fellow officers of yours that might be struggling with their mental health and might really need to talk about it?
I want every first responder, and I include firefighters, EMS personnel, my nurses, my doctors in the ER, my respiratory techs. I want them to know that it's okay not to be okay. That stigma that has been surrounding law enforcement for so many decades. I remember coming up, one of my first field training officers told me when I worked for the agency, the school district that I used to work for, Al, you want to see stuff? Suck it up. We want to handle the next call. Okay? Whatever that was, it's done. Tuck it away. Make room for the next one. Because this job, all you're going to see is bad things. And I'm like, wait a minute. I work for a school district police department. What am I going to see? Little did I know that a school district policing is probably harder than traditional law enforcement.
Wow.
Because you're in that atmosphere for 8 to 12 hours a day. The same kids, the same teachers, the same parents. You see, parenting today is not like parenting when I was growing up. You see, it was called discipline back then. Since the climate changed in the mid-'80s into the late 80s and early 90s, it was taboo for parents to be parents. And that's what changed how we do our job. Because now we're dealing with, it's very unfortunate that in today's society we're dealing with more kids committing heinous crimes than adults. And I say that to sum it up with this. We see humanity at its worst. Whenever that phone goes off and we say 911, what's your emergency? By the way, did I tell you I was a dispatcher as well? Oh, yeah. Yeah. 911, what's your emergency? And you're hearing the screams, the yelling, and the dispatcher takes the call, and then they dispatch it to EMS. And if it's a major accident, for example, then you send out the fire department. But usually the first one's there are law enforcement. And we see this picture that stays in our mind. We can't erase it. The dead child, the wife battered, the drunk driving, the assaults, the murders. You see, I think people forget that we're human beings too. And these things, once they are captivated here, they stay there. And we've never taught how to handle that mental stress. All the demons that we keep here that come out when you can't sleep through stress, your health. I can talk to you about the longevity of a law enforcement officer after he retires. Our career takes 10 years of our life. It shortens our life, by 10 years.
Wow.
So if the average lifespan is 76, 78 years of age, now with medicine it's actually 83, 85. At best, we're living until about 65. If, through the grace of God, that we last that long. Because the stress is never handled. We're never told, hey, in this job, you have to take care of your mental health. It's a stigma. Police officers do not want to talk about what they're dealing with at home in the dark with their families, and the families not understanding why they can't sleep, why they resort to alcohol to help deaden the nightmares and the thoughts of what we have seen through our career. And then there's something called cumulative stress, which is cumulative trauma, which means you see a situation, you tuck it away, and then tomorrow you got another trauma. And you add that on top of the one you saw yesterday. And then you go day 3, and you get that trauma, and it's added to this, and now you got 3 days worth of trauma. Now, take that over a span of 30 years.
Yeah, I can imagine.
The things we see that civilians are, the community we serve will never see. In a lifespan of a human being, they may see one traumatic incident in their life, maybe 2 on the outside. If you work in any first responder position, firefighting, EMS, law enforcement, you may see anywhere from 5 to 10 on any given day. A car accident with fatalities, a drunk driver, a homicide, a family violence. And we'll see 2, 3 of those a week, 4. There was one period where I had 5 DOAs.
DOA for the people
Which
that
is
don't know?
dead on arrival. Someone in their home that a family member hasn't heard from them and they want us to do a welfare check. Mm-hmm. I did 5 in 1 week. That accumulates over time. So that stress, that traumatic situation that we see day in and day out over a 30-year period. And no one tells us how to handle those thoughts, those visions. And then we find our own way to handle them.
Usually not healthy.
It's never healthy. We never tell someone to go exercise to reduce their cortisol levels. What's that? oh, that's your stress hormone. Yeah. We didn't learn that back in the day. We were just told, suck it up, and we'll get ready for the next day. Mm-hmm. And it's coming to light drastically because not only are we seeing the traumatic situations, but we also have to, on top of that, deal with the views and the perception of the community, which adds additional stress on us. Well, you can't go to a simple disturbance and say, hey, you go there, you go there. We have a crowd of people. Man, you can't do nothing to them. You gotta leave them alone. Well, we're not doing anything yet. We're just talking and trying to separate them.
Trying to do my job.
So now we're dealing with the criminal act, or the disturbance, excuse me, and now we gotta deal with the crowd. And those situations in which we see the worst of the worst, and we still have to talk to the family and break them the news. And now we're seeing the family response to whatever happened. Now we're seeing other officers that are seeing this, and we see as an individual human being what's going on. And we have all these different aspects that we have to look at. And then we have to go home to our families and try to continue to be the same individual that we were before the shift started. And still be able to share what needs to be shared with the family. Mm-hmm. We're never taught until now, how important it is to maintain your mental health. And I promise you, it is something tragic what's happening to law enforcement and first responders as a whole. Our firefighters, our paramedics, our nurses, our doctors are seeing things day in and day. I had the opportunity to work at Herman ER, Ben Taub ER, LBJ ER. I worked in the back of an ambulance. I worked in a fire truck. I worked in a police car. I've heard the cries for help on the phone. I've done CPR on the phone. That's stuff that we're never taught in how to deal with. And that's why it's important that we today, in this age, in this decade, in this century, we teach our first responders how to protect this. Because without this, there's nothing left. So we have to teach. We have to share that knowledge on how to handle the mental stress of this job.
I agree. And that's exactly why we're here, right? And that's exactly why I thought you were the perfect person to open this conversation, right? Because you have so much experience in all those different fields, right? You've been through so many things in your life that whether it's been up and down, I know it's been up and down. It hasn't been smooth sailing, right?
No,
but you've gotten through it. And a lot of officers, a lot of first responders can really learn from your story, and they can really be inspired by it. And so I can't thank you enough for being here. This is very important to me, coming from a family, my dad being an officer. I know how hard the job was on him, and I know how many things that he bottled up and never spoke to anybody about. And like I said, I think that's exactly why we're here. And so we definitely will get more into that in the very near future. But first, I'm going to take it back a little bit.
Oh, how far back?
Your childhood, so
maybe that's far back. Oh.
So maybe a little far back, right?
Let me see. Hold on. I think I remember. Yeah.
So just tell me, where'd you grow up and what was it like? What was your childhood like?
Man, if I could go back to my childhood, I would stay there. I would not leave.
Yeah.
Okay. Don't laugh too hard. But I remember growing up in the 60s and the 70s. Great times as a child. But it was a different world back then as well. I had the blessing of having a mom that stayed home and a dad who worked. 2 and 3 jobs to support the family. I was blessed, and people laugh, but I used to have a peanut butter and jelly sandwich and a glass of milk waiting for me. And then, the funny thing is, back then, Mom would say, okay, go upstairs, take off your school clothes and put on your play clothes, and go outside. It was a blessing to have both Mom and Dad growing up. Having my siblings growing up in the same household, it was a totally different world. It wasn't always great. My dad had to work a lot, okay, to support 3 children, a wife, a home, a car, pay the bills, which I know about now. I wish I didn't. Growing up, I have to say, in my time, was the best. We went outside and we played. We drank from the water hose when we were hot. We stayed out until the sunset. Once those street lights came on, we knew where we had to be.
Yeah,
right.
Get your butt home
real quick, because my mom had to call me from the door. From the door was okay. And I got a story about that. But if she went to the top step, I would hear, Alfredo! By the way, my name is Alfred. I knew then, guys, I gotta go. If my mom was at the bottom step by the gate, holding it open,
You knew you were cooked.
Yeah, it was over. But that's the times that I grew in. We had to knock on the door and ask if our neighbors or if our friends could come and play. This is kind of embarrassing, but I loved it. Black and white TVs.
Yeah.
Loved it. But I didn't love the rabbit ear antennas that we had to put on the TV. Because unfortunately, somebody had to hold the ears if we couldn't get it to work right. Guess who that was?
Always
Yeah.
you.
Yeah. But it was also a time where the family was the family. We went to church on a regular basis. We studied the Bible. We read the Bible. We understood what it was supposed to be as a good human being. That was taught to us by our parents.
Yeah, it's been lost a lot lately.
Yeah, it doesn't, almost non-existent.
Yeah.
I hate to say it. Back then, we watched TV as a family. And it's funny because the programming back then, this was cool. I love this. I love watching TV back then. Emergency 51. Adam 12. SWAT. The Three Stooges. The Monsters. Car 54. They were wholesome shows. Even if it was funny, it still was family based. The Monsters. Okay, that was a weird family. My family wasn't that weird, but that was a weird family. But they were family. It was family oriented. And we lost a lot of that. If I can go back to the age of 13, 14, to the age of 17, I would stay there. Because that's the time that I remember the most. There was a time that I also remember where my mother had to hide me in the basement of our home during the racial riots in New Jersey in the late 60s and early 70s. That existed.
Jeez.
But there was more good times than bad. And it was a blessing going on a Friday afternoon, Friday evening. Okay, we're going to McDonald's. And that was the biggest thrill in the house. That was like awesome, right? Awesome time. McDonald's. Dairy Queen. Yeah. But for us back then, that was a huge treat. And we did it as a family. Mom in the front seat. By the way, there was no seatbelts.
Oh, wow.
I'm not going to tell you how my sister fell out of the car. I don't remember that. But we rolling down to this. We were going to go eat at McDonald's or Dairy Queen. And a car's blowing the horn saying, hey, you left something in the street. My sister fell out of the car. Yeah.
God.
No seatbelts.
That's insane.
She was fine, though.
I can't even
We
imagine
went back,
that.
picked her up, and we went to eat. That
Just a
life.
Tuesday. Just a normal
that was
Tuesday.
life. Yeah, that was life in the 70s, you know? It was fun. We laughed. She cried. I laughed harder, you know? But my childhood was one that I think has had such a large impact in who I am today. If you talk to a lot of the friends that I grew up with, they'll tell you I look just like my mom. And I'm just like my mom. I'm a people person. I can talk to people all day. Anyone, for that matter. And hold a conversation and share information and share knowledge. That's what growing up for me was. It's been an integral part of who I am today and why I do all the things I do and did as a first responder.
Yeah. Well, how would you describe yourself as a kid? Like, were you the nerdy kid, the jock? What were you?
Oh, I was no jock, I promise you. I was every bit of 5'3", all the way until high school.
Same.
No one wanted to pick me to play basketball. I could play football. I could play baseball. But that was about as good as I could get. But we still played outside. I was the nerd. Felix the Cat was one of the premier cartoons at the time. And they used to call me Felix the Cat because I can talk to you about math, history, science. Unfortunately, I was a pretty smart kid. Not real athletic until I got into high school, but still equal balance, kind of, sort of, in my mind anyway.
I'll give it to you.
But I was the nerd. I really got into the books, the honor roll. I can remember all the way through high school. AB honor roll, straight A honor roll. Never got suspended. Never had in-school suspension. Never got detention. Unfortunately, I was kind of into the books when I was a kid. But I will say this. I'm thankful for that knowledge that I accrued and that I learned as a kid. It definitely has helped me as an adult.
And so what led you into wanting to be a first responder? I know in 1988, I think is when you joined the fire department. And so I'm sure some of those shows that you were watching early on definitely had a big influence in that.
Huge impact. Huge impact. Who would have ever thought that Adam 12 would have been the guiding light that led me into law enforcement? Now, Emergency 51, yeah, I could see me being a paramedic and a firefighter. Oh, wait a minute. I did both. Yeah.
Yeah, I was going to say, you were.
Yeah, I did that. I think the shows back then were wholesome. They taught you values, the importance of life, really. Throughout my life as an adult, I've had the opportunity to save lives, babies, adults, but I've also had the misfortune of having to make notifications of death. The hardest thing is to tell a parent that they lost a child. One of the things I learned very early in my EMS career was that even if the obvious was obvious, it's not obvious because the family has to be given some type of maybe not hope, because we know the bad thing has already happened, but give them something to look for, something positive out of something negative. There is a silver lining in every black cloud. There's always something that you can get out of a bad situation. And that's what I learned in every first responder position I've carried throughout my lifetime. Giving people hope. And if nothing else, something to hold on to. What can we get? What can we learn from this situation that family can hold on to? What good can come out of that situation? And I don't talk much about religion, but growing up in a religious home, it definitely plays a big part of what I do and how I treat people. I call it giving people hope, something to hold on to. And that's why I love what I do now as a first responder. Law enforcement, probably the best job I've ever had. And I've had a few, but being in law enforcement has to be the best. I can help that family member, or I can help those who have had a bad situation get their property back, console them, let them know that things were going to be okay, or at least show compassion while they're going through that situation. Even if I can't change this right now, I can give them something to think about later. And I think in today's society, compassion, we've lost that. And when we talk about mental health for us as a first responder, one of the first things we have to focus on is we have to regain that compassion. Because what we see every day, you can very easily go through compassion fatigue is what we call it. You do the same thing over and over and over and over, and you get the same response over and over and over and over. So you get tired over and over and over and over. And that citizen, that individual, deserves the compassion that we once had. But the only way to keep that compassion is by taking care of your mental health. You got to take care of this. This mindset, you have to take care of it. If you don't, you lose your compassion. You lose the purpose of the job. You forget what you're supposed to be doing. So mental health is important to keep allowing us to do the job that we love to do.
And what would you say your number one takeaway was from your days being a firefighter? Like how did that affect and impact you going forward?
I laugh because I really didn't know a lot about death until I became a firefighter. Graduating my firefighter academy, New Year's Day, January 1st, 1989, was my first experience with death. Seeing it, having to treat it. And to this day, there's still a memorial for that individual who I still don't know who that person was. I know what I had to do that day. Having to go through the process of trying to put this individual back together after a tragedy of the motorcycle accident. Then as a firefighter, my first house fire, my first contact, which was probably was harder than the motorcycle, actually, because I'm thinking we're doing a process of making sure there's no more hot spots, and I moved this piece of what I thought was furniture, and there was an elderly gentleman who got burned in the fire.
Oh my God.
Yeah, so very early on in my career as a first responder, I learned what death was all about. But more was the fact that I had a background with God, and I understood what that relationship was, so I was able to share that with the people I came in contact with. That's helped me throughout my career, from the very beginning to today. That compassion, understanding the purpose of life and who gave it to us and how we got it and what it means to honor what life is about, has allowed me to get through some of the things I've seen in my career.
And how would you say you coped with those tragic experiences early on in your career, right? Like you being so young and probably not having all that much life experience up until that point, and now you're coming face to face, like you said, with death. Like, do you remember how you kind of processed through those emotions? Did you even process through those emotions? Like, how did you deal with those back in the day?
Didn't deal with them. I had an understanding wife at the time, so that made it a little easier. I was taught and trained not to talk much about it, to protect the family, which we don't preach anymore.
It doesn't protect the family.
Don't preach that, no. I have to fall back on my teaching of God. And I think up to the year 2025, that's what's gotten me through a lot of the negativity and the bad things that I've seen and experienced in life is my relationship with God.
Mhm.
It's important.
Yeah, it is. And so after being a firefighter, you ended up, like you said, going into being an EMS,
Yeah.
right? What led you down that route? How did that end up happening?
I got tired of fighting fires.
Understandably.
No one told me it's actually hot in a fire. And no one told me about all the gear we have to wear. It was a trailer fire off of Aldine Westfield. And I tell you what, that was my closest near experience to death. I said, I ain't doing this no more. I ended up the floor. We went inside to fight an interior attack on a mobile home. The floor gave out, and I was straddling a 2x4, okay, with 50 pounds of gear and about 80 pounds of coat and boots and fire retardant pants. I said, no, I'm not doing this anymore. So I asked to be moved to the medical squad. But to be moved to the squad, I had to be an EMT. EMT basic. And that's where that started. I went from the fire truck to the small truck. I said, I got tired of that. So I went to the heavy rescue, the Jaws of Life, the spreaders and stuff like that. But that still took me to the medical side of things because the only time we got to play with the toys, as we used to call them, was doing tragedy. Yeah. So I had to get experience as a EMT intermediate and paramedic, learning how to start IVs and stuff like that. And that led me down another path that we'll talk about later, I'm sure. You're going to ask me about that. I can feel it. But one thing does lead to the other. And I have learned from others that experience of being a firefighter, EMT, and being a police officer, or becoming a nurse, they're all intertwined. They're all together. You can't do one without the other. You can't be a firefighter without traveling on the ambulance, doing CPR, or being an extra set of hands. And you, as a first responder, as a firefighter, or even a paramedic on an ambulance, you don't go into a scene until law enforcement clears it. Okay, scene is safe. You can go in. Well, you hear enough of that. Even at my age, the excitement was still there. So, natural gravitation. That took me to law enforcement, and that's where I'm at now.
Got you. And so I'm sure with becoming an EMT, you were excited to be out of the immediate danger of the fires. But like you said, it's all intertwined. So I'm sure you still experience your fair share of tragic moments there.
Yeah, drunk drivers, busted lip, hopper at 59. I remember still. Guy in the ditch. I'm like, okay, come on out, let me help you out, Waiting for law enforcement to get there so they can do their thing. And he kicks back, pushes me away, and right here, didn't even see it coming. Until I felt this coming down, the blood coming down. I was like, oh no. Yeah, we want to transport this one. Yeah. Call me veg. Yeah, he went to the hospital, and then from there he had to face the police, the sheriff's department, sheriff's office. But that was far less than everything I experienced in law enforcement. That was really kind of like I think they call it the cherry on the cake, was my EMS experience. Then I started playing with the big boys. Then law enforcement came around, and I just gravitated to it. It was just like a normal thing for me. I didn't think twice about it. Didn't have to.
Yeah. And you went into the academy in 1999, and then you said you graduated in 2000.
2000.
Right? How was the academy for you? What was your experience like?
If you've never been a heavy person, you really don't understand what losing 32 pounds in 6.5 months.
Ooh, yeah.
We ran every day. We did calisthenics, we did exercises, we worked in the classroom, and when we were not in the classroom, we were either in the gym or running the streets. I lost 32 pounds in 6.5 months.
That's good. That's awesome.
The best shape of my life was coming out of the academy. We're not going to talk about it now, but back then, I was in my best shape. I even became a runner. I was able to run 1.5 miles in 12 minutes and 30 seconds, which for me was really good. When you're talking about someone who doesn't know how to run.
Yeah.
But it got me in shape mentally and physically, because it taught me what I needed to know as a police officer, but it also gave me a foundation on being healthy, exercising, working out. Didn't do much on the nutritional side of it, but they gave me what I needed to stay healthy.
That's good. Yeah. And so right after that, you went to Aldine ISD, if I'm correct.
Yes, Aldine ISD.
What was your experience like? Fresh out, becoming a cop. What was it like?
No one told me what kids were like.
Probably thought it was gonna be easy, huh?
Everybody that's school-based law enforcement. Man, that's easy. All you do is deal with kids. No. That was probably how I learned how to fight.
Oh.
Yeah. I learned how to fight male and females. 12-year-old females in the alternative school who was able to beat 4 grown men. Yeah, I learned how to fight.
Tell me about. I gotta hear about that. I gotta hear about the 12-year-old whooping 4 grown men. We gotta go a little deeper. We can't skim over that.
Okay, you gotta make me. Okay, I was assigned to the alternative school, which is where the bad kids went.
Yeah.
And at the time, I had a narcotics canine. His name was Red. I got a picture of him at home. Beautiful lab. Well, the kids would walk by us, okay? And of course, his nose sensed something. I tell the principal, Red's hitting up. So the principal takes the student to the office. What I didn't know at the time was that she had already taken a hit of cocaine. And at the time, God, this story is embarrassing, but at the time we didn't have bulletproof vests at the school district. So when I went to approach her to do a pat down to see if she had any more drugs, of course, being a female, I'm trying to gingerly go through her pockets and pick out whatever she had. I was not expecting her to take her right hand, rev it back, and hit me dead in my chest. I thought I was dying. Have you ever gotten hit in the chest and not expecting it? Knocks the air out of you. And I'm calling for assistance. I got everybody coming to me. I get 3 other officers. One who is no longer with us on this earth. And 2 other ones. One of them was like me, but he was about 5'9". And the other 2 were 6 foot tall, 6'1", about 250, 260, 270. she was whooping us. She was on that stuff. She was whooping us. And one of the officers had to really rev it back, twist that arm, take her to the ground, and we all jumped on her and got her handcuffed.
Jeez. How big was she?
She was 5'9". I'm not going to say what the nickname was. It has something to do about linebacker.
I was literally going to say that the Dallas Cowboys need some help on the O-line. Where is she at now?
I don't even want to think about where she's at. But she definitely was, she was strong.
Yeah.
Then we got a tox report back, and of course we filed additional charges, of course, felony charges. Mm-hmm. But that's when I learned that if a female wants to hit you like a man, you treat him like a man.
Yeah.
And I learned how to ground fight, and to the point where at the sheriff's office I was taking jiu-jitsu classes and Krav Maga classes on self-defense, and that helped me through my career as well. Mm-hmm. So I talked a lot of people into handcuffs, but I also used a little bit of force to get him in the handcuffs. But I have been blessed for 25 years working the streets and never been involved in officer-involved shooting, so I was blessed that way. Mm-hmm. I've always had the ability to talk people into doing what I wanted them to do, so I was blessed.
Gotcha. And so in 2016, you transitioned to the Harris County Sheriff's Office, where my dad worked also.
Yep.
What was your role there with Harris County, or especially early on?
Early on, I was a patrol deputy. As a matter of fact, I met your dad when I was with Aldine.
Oh, wow.
Working bus accidents.
Really?
Yeah, that's how I learned how to work bus accidents. Him and a couple of the other guys, now retired, taught me how to work bus accidents.
Okay, I didn't know that.
Oh, yeah.
That's awesome.
Oh, yeah. There's one who's retired. He's up east somewhere. I think he's a constable. Mm-hmm. The constable. I got to research that, but I believe he's the constable now. Mm-hmm. He was my go-to guy whenever I had a bus accident. But as a Harris County Sheriff's Deputy, I was on patrol night shift. I worked nights for many years, taking care of my child when she was growing up, my youngest daughter. So I worked nights a lot. And I was on patrol in District 2, the best district there is. Had a lot of fun, made a lot of good friends, lifelong friends. And that took me down a different path with the sheriff's office.
And at the sheriff's office, being a deputy on patrol, what would you say was the most challenging aspect of the job?
The volume of work. Harris County is the third largest county in the United States. The largest in Texas. 5.8 million individuals live in the unincorporated areas of Harris County.
That's a lot of people. Means a lot of crime.
Lots of crime. With, I think the last number of deputies was, I believe we're up to 1,700 certified deputies. And that includes everything from patrol deputies to individual TAC units, SWAT, hostage negotiation, which is I'm part of the team of, bomb squad. I mean, to cover this large area, 720 square miles. This county is huge. Yeah. It takes you almost, on a good day, traveling from one part of Harris County to the other, about 2.5 hours, 3 hours. Go from this point, that point.
Yeah.
It's huge. Yeah. And we're not going to talk about traffic. We're going to talk about traffic. No.
So, I didn't even know you did hostage negotiation,
Yes.
right? How did you get into that? What was that like?
I thought you would never ask.
You've been waiting for that one.
Yes. I'm a talker. I can talk all day.
I can tell a little
Yeah,
bit.
it comes natural. So it was a situation where with the Aldine Police Department dealing with it was a certain group of children that had mental health issues, emotional issues. I dealt with a lot of those kids at Aldi, and I just gravitated to that. It was easy for me to talk to the kids, and one of the things that helped me come to the sheriff's office was the fact that I used to spend time with the kids. I remember telling you earlier, I had probably the best childhood. I'm not going to lie to you. I had mom and dad home. I was able to learn from my dad and my mom. I started working in the school district, and I come to learn very quickly that not everybody has that. So I would spend time talking to the kids in the cafeteria, in the hallways, athletic events, parent-teacher conference nights, and I would talk to the parents and I would talk to the kids. To me, it was almost natural to give some of these kids a father figure. And even if I took them to jail, which I took quite a few to jail, because it's part of my job, I gave them what I call the father speech. They're in the backseat of my patrol car, handcuffed, but they had to listen to me. Not the radio.
They ain't got no choice.
They had no choice. Slide the gate open, and they had to listen to me. And to this day, on social media, I would say more than half of the people I have on my social media are former students.
Wow.
And I'll tell you about one special one a little bit later on, who I spent many hours throughout the school years talking to this individual during lunch about my experiences on the ambulance as a firefighter, as a cop. 20 years later, I come into a rather difficult point in my life, and that same young man I talked to during lunch saved my life. As on the ambulance. So it was natural for me to come to Harris County, hear about the hostage negotiation team, and me to gravitate towards it. Again, I like to talk. Sometimes talking taught me how to listen. And sometimes listening is probably the most important thing, more than talking. Because I came to learn that with the kids, adults are no different. They need someone to listen to them. They need to vent. They need to get whatever they're going through out. So I said, okay, you know what? Al, you like to talk, don't you? I said, yeah. You know what? I got a great job for you. I said, okay, what is it? Hostage negotiations. I'll take it. Tried out and made the team.
That's awesome.
It's been 2025. I have been part of that team now for about 3 years as a hostage negotiator. And I've had some real good experiences.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What would you say was probably your most intense situation?
Talking someone out safely. Cypress Station, 1960, near 45. The wife gives me her phone, and I'm FaceTiming this guy. talking to him about getting him out and what it would take to get him out safely. And he told me, I want to see the warrant. And I want to see the cops that are going to take me out. I said, okay. Look out your window. You'll see the SWAT members. Just do it lightly. Just look out the window. I'm sure you'll see them. Well, I want to see the warrant. I said, I'll get you that. Well, I want a cigarette. I said, I'll tell you what. If you come out with your hands up, I'll have a cigarette waiting for you. As a matter of fact, I'll even have your family so you can talk to them before you go. I showed them the warrant, signed by the judge, on FaceTime. The wife's phone, the whole time we're on her phone. Got him out just under 2 hours. Came out, gave him a cigarette like I promised. I let him say goodbye to his family, and he didn't give us any issues after that.
And what did he done? Maybe I missed that.
It was a assault,
Okay.
a bodily injury, and he had an issue with HPD prior to that. Yes, and he didn't have a good experience, so he didn't trust us. So I had to win him over.
So he basically like barricaded himself in?
Inside a hotel,
Mm-hmm.
second floor.
Jeez.
Mm-hmm. Got him out without destroying property. Yeah. SWAT wasn't happy, but I mean, we got him out.
Yeah, SWAT probably wanted to get some action.
They wanted to play, but so it was a situation like that where I've had the opportunity to talk people out.
How do you, in those situations, keep yourself composed, keep your energy in the right place, and make sure that, I'm sure you have to have a lot of self-control over your own emotions to be able to control this other person's emotion, and you're meeting them at their worst. This is your first time even talking to them, and you're the guy on the phone. There's a lot of stress, a lot of pressure for you to get that situation handled. How did you cope with those emotions? How did you manage to get through those situations?
My team, we have an awesome team. Everybody has a job. We have a primary, which is the person talking to the barricaded subject. We have a secondary who's writing down information, reminding you of certain points, feeding you information, and then we have the rest of the team that's getting information to help us get that individual out. It's a team effort. And on any given occasion, you can have 5, 6, 7 negotiators, but sometimes you just have 3. And you have to do with what you have. Mm-hmm. But I rely on my team. Mm-hmm. As long as I know they're doing what they need to do to help me do what I have to do, or I'm doing what I have to do to help them do what they have to do, it's a team effort. Mm-hmm. There's no one man or one woman in this job. It's a team effort. Yeah. And we have individuals who, like I mentioned earlier, have that compassion, that desire to get that individual the help he or she needs. Because sometimes all they want to do is have someone listen to them. And we've been able to talk a lot of people out without having to use force. Mm-hmm. So in my particular case, knowing that I have a lot of people behind me makes it very easy to do what I have to do and focus on that individual to get them out.
And I do want to circle back to that moment that you talked about, that you said that you had a near-death experience, and that gentleman that you had spent a long time talking to ended up being a big part in helping you. So can you break down that story, break down what happened for us, and give us a little deeper insight into that?
Oh, yeah. September 15th, 2024. I'm traveling southbound in the Hardy Toll Road, minding my own business. And as I'm passing 1960 southbound to work, 2 motorcycles fly by me. We've had experiences with takeovers where there's a group of motorcycles, but there's always 1 or 2 that start off by disturbing the traffic flow, and then the others come in to continue. Well, I called out on those 2 motorcycles. In my police car, unmarked, make the call, give my unit number, how the two motorcycles, the speed that they're traveling, direction of travel. I'm putting down my mic. They're flying by. I look in my side mirror and I see more motorcycles coming. Well, in the process of me realizing what I think was about to happen, which that we're going to do a takeover, I'm reaching for my microphone to call out what's about to happen. Little did I know that the two motorcycles that passed me up were involved in an accident. The one motorcycle apparently hit a vehicle. He went forward, his motorcycle went backwards. And it unfortunately was coming in my direction. As I do evasive maneuvers, I didn't see where the second motorcycle was, and the second motorcycle hits me in my driver's side door. Automatically throws me into the retention wall. My front end of my vehicle hits the retention wall, knocks it out of place, flips me over, and I roll 3 times into the wood line. I was in my seatbelt with my body gear, my body armor. And to this day, what saved my life was my body armor, what people call the bulletproof vest, and my seatbelt. What I didn't know was that I was trapped inside the vehicle, upside down. And I had a few people come, especially one individual, who stayed inside the car with me, even though the car was leaking gasoline. And I remember telling him to get out, because I didn't know if the car was going to blow up or anything. And he stayed in the vehicle until the firefighters got there to get me out. I was transported to the hospital. But the interesting story about the paramedic and the ambulance was, this was the same young man that I used to talk to at Nimitz High School, who graduated in 2004, who I used to talk to about my experiences as a medic on an ambulance. I did not know that he had told that story to all the command staff and the people that were there checking on me, my well-being, that young man was a former student who I used to talk to, who encouraged him to become a paramedic. I give him credit for saving my life. And this young man told the story to everyone that was there. I later found out, because I was a little bit under I wasn't exactly all there at the time. Yeah. And they shared what he said. And I recognized him as a student from Nimitz High School. And I remember telling you that I would spend time talking to the students. That's what I did. I just didn't take them to jail, or I just didn't scold them, or I used to talk to them as adults, sharing life experiences with them, hoping that something positive would happen. And that young man saved my life, who turned out to be a former student from Nimitz High School. What happened in that accident was I broke my neck in several spots. And the difficult part about that was I have faced many things in my lifetime. But what I wasn't ready for was listening to the doctor say that I may never walk again, because I broke my neck in several places. I couldn't move. I was confined to a bed at Houston HCA Northwest, and then I went to Memorial Hermann Tier, which is a rehabilitation center, and I couldn't do anything for myself for 2 months.
You were paralyzed for 2 months?
2 months. And I was starting to believe that maybe I wouldn't walk again. But there's something about thinking about the important people in your life. And that one important person was my daughter, my youngest, who is finishing up her second year at Texas State University, who had to make the most serious decisions in her life at the age of 19. I was not going to let her down. And you learn very quickly what's important. I remember telling you that growing up, I grew up in a very religious home. Church all the time. Bible studies. We ate together, we prayed together. Sometimes in life, we have a tendency of losing our faith. I believe there, laying in that bed, I regained my faith again. And I learned, or I remembered what I had learned as a kid. And I think at that point in time is when regaining my faith in God brought back the healing. Little by little, doctor said I was able to move my toes. I still didn't feel it. I was able to move my arms, couldn't feel them. But I was doing little things. And it was little things every day. When I was discharged from Memorial Hermann Tier, prior to that, I had to be lifted by a lift to get in and out of bed, in and out of the shower. Wasn't doing anything for myself.
Yeah, you showed me a picture, literally a whole machine just picking you up.
And like an elevator goes.
I can't imagine.
And I think that's where I regained my faith. Seeing what was happening to me, what was going on, the results. I think that's when I started receiving God's blessings again. Because by the time I left here, I was actually able, with assistance, to stand. I would have to grab up to something like the washing machine when I had to wash my clothes, and I would just grab that and pull myself up to where now, 7.5 months later, I've been blessed to be able to walk, work out again. I'm definitely taking care of myself, cleaning house and my dog. Don't forget the bird. You can't forget Smokey. No. I've received enough blessings to where I'm not exactly where I was before, but here and here, I'm in a much better place than when I was before. And sometimes, the man upstairs, as I call him, has a way of teaching you how to regain your faith. And he helped me regain my faith. And I've been blessed to the point now where I was released from my rehab assignment 6 months early. And I'm on the verge of possibly being released to full duty again. And it's only been 7.5 months since the accident.
And 2 of those months you couldn't move. So it's been like 5 months since you've even been able to move again, and you're close to qualifying to. I think you said your test is like in a week
Yep.
and a half, right?
Mm-hmm. I've already qualified, and I got a few things to still work on, but a week from today, I can be potentially released to full duty again.
That's incredible. That's incredible. And in those moments, when you're by yourself, can't even move, what were those conversations like in your head, right? What was that like?
Sad. I cried a lot. I asked the question why a lot. And I learned that I was running from a lot of things. And running doesn't always give you the answers that you're looking for. I remember reading a quote that said, running from life doesn't help you live life. And I was running from a lot of things just prior to that accident. And I realized that I had to deal with a lot of things here, which in turn helped me here. And those conversations, I remember a roommate, who are you talking to over there? Oh, just me and God having a conversation, and I'm losing the argument. Huh? It's okay. I won't. Go back to sleep. I was literally having this argument or this conversation with the man upstairs, asking him why. Why me? Why like this? When I still felt like I had something to do. Those conversations were profound. They were deep. And I had conversations with people that dealt with mental health. I had a favorite psychologist. Her name was Dr. Black. Would come in every day. Clockwork. How you doing today, Al? I'm doing okay. How you feeling? All right. And we would have this conversation every day. And close to being discharged from Memorial Hermann Tier, when the conversation got like, you know what, Doc, I'm doing much better now. I'm ready to move forward. But it took a while. And she kept coming back every day, asking me the same questions. And that pushed me in the direction that I needed to go. And today, I walked driving my own vehicle again. I am here because of a blessing. Not because of me, but because of blessing. And that's what I want to share with all my first responders. It could look dim. It could look dark. But there is hope. And I've seen a few dark moments in my life. But I was able to regain what I needed, which was faith. So I just want to share that with others.
And that's the power of God, right? Like he places us in positions where sometimes we have no choice, right? And for you, like you said, you were running from a lot of things, I know you told me that you were overworking like crazy. You were always constantly working and, like you said, running from all those emotions. And he placed you in a position where that wasn't an option. You had to just lie there with your own mind and work through all those things that you had been burying for such a long time, right? And so that's why I think it's so important for us to look for the bright things, like the the light in the terrible situations and the tragedies, right? Because for me too, the most growth that I've ever had was after losing my dad. You know, the most that I've ever learned about myself was in those moments where I felt completely helpless, you know, and I really do believe that, you know, God places us in those positions and to teach us the lessons that we need and to bring us and draw us closer to him, because, you know, you could have very easily used that as a time to go in the opposite direction, right? But you use that to bring you closer to him. And I don't think your recovery, that miracle that has happened, would be capable without him, right? And so I think that's a beautiful thing. And if you're okay with it, I would like to talk about one of those things that, you know, that you said that you were running from. I think for most people in their life, an accident like that would be easily the most traumatic thing that they've gone through, right? But for you, unfortunately, that's not the case for you, right? And the most tragic thing that could ever happen to someone is losing a child. And for you, you lost your oldest daughter, Darlene. And if I'm mistaken, you were actually on the scene when it happened. And so, would you mind talking a little bit about that, going into that? Could you tell us about that day and what it was like to get that call?
It's a parent's worst nightmare is to lose their child. But the hardest thing is to find that child. April 30th, 2020, I was on patrol. I was on day shift. I was with my partner. We had just finished a family disturbance. Rankin and 45. I remember getting multiple phone calls from who was now my ex-wife, asking me if I heard from our daughter, Darlene. I said no. But prior to actually talking to her, I received several phone calls, several text messages, and a voicemail. And I said, what is wrong? Okay, let me answer this. So we're parked up at the Exxon on Rankin, near Rankin and 45. And I call her. She says, have you heard from Darlene? I said, no. She's probably home sleeping. She said, well, we haven't been able to reach her. Would you go check on her? My daughter lived at 301 West Little York, the Concord Apartments. 45 in Little York, it's a 5-minute drive, the way I drive, from Rankin and 45 to Little York and 45. I pull up to her apartment, and I park right in front of her window. And I was in my patrol unit, and I was on duty. And I said, you know what, let me wake this girl up. Let her call her mom. I'm going to go back to work. As I get out of my car, I see one of Darlene's friends, Melissa, crying hysterically. And I asked her what was wrong. She said, I'm trying to reach Darlene and she's not answering the phone. So, well, how long have you been trying? For an hour, and I've been knocking on the door with no answer. As I was pulling up into the parking area, I saw her car, one of her cars. I said, this girl's just sleeping. She's probably got worked late last night and overslept. I'm gonna wake her up, knock on the door, and have her call her mom. Then Melissa told me what she told me. If you've never had what we call a sinking feeling in your stomach where you just got kicked by a mule and you feel that real intense pain, I knew something was wrong.
And you're on duty at this point, right?
I was on duty. I go to the leasing office and I asked the leasing manager to unsecure the door. And I said, if she didn't, I would take it off the hinges and I would pay for it later. And she said, no. We've been trying to reach Darlene for 2 days and we haven't been able to talk to her. I know something's wrong. Maintenance guy comes in, takes the lock off, and I tell everybody to step back. I don't know why, and I still don't really realize why, but I turned on my body camera. So it caught everything from the time I opened the door, the 3 steps that I took. I looked to the right and I saw my daughter on her bathroom floor. I knew she was gone. I closed the door. I tell the manager to call 911. I need EMS and I need police. I secured the door to make sure nobody contaminated, nobody entered behind me. I drew my gun and I cleared her whole apartment. It was a 1-bedroom, single story. As I entered through the kitchen into the bedroom, her door was open. I saw the weapon under the bed. I cleared the doorway, went in. I was expecting to see a second body, and I didn't. Her first closet was open, the door was open, and it was in shambles. I go to the second closet, open it, everything was okay there. Close that door, and I try to open the bathroom door that leads from her bedroom into the one bathroom. It was secured, it was locked. And as I told you before, as a firefighter and as EMS, I've seen death before. And there's a certain odor to death. And I knew she was gone. I reholstered my weapon. I pulled my latex gloves out of my pocket, which I always carry. You can see me putting on the gloves. And I very carefully went to the body and checked the carotid for a pulse, and I knew I wasn't going to find one. The blood was already pooled. It was already dried. Rigor mortis had already set in, but I still went through the process anyway. And unfortunately, to this day, right now, I can tell you what that scene looked like. Her striped pants, her blouse, the pool of blood by her head, the shell casings under her armpits, the brain matter, and the hole in the mirror. All her makeup on the counter where she was sitting. And took my gloves off, put them back in my pocket. I went to the door and pushed everybody away. And I stood by the door. I made 2 phone calls. One was to my supervisor, and I couldn't reach him. I called our central dispatch and spoke to a very good friend of mine, Elsie, excuse me. But I didn't know I was talking to her at the time. Answered all of her questions. Suspect name, how long she had been down, address, suspect name, her name. But I never remembered that I had already called it out on the radio. So I already had people coming to help me. The first ones there were the paramedics, and what I will say about HFD, they were amazing. They sent, not only did they send a supervisor, they sent an ambulance with paramedics on it and a fire truck with other EMS personnel and firefighters on it. On my body cam, you can see me talking to them, telling them exactly what they're going to see, what to expect. And while they went in to confirm her, the rest of them surrounded me in a circle and didn't let anybody near me. And they kept me going until the first Harris County unit arrived. 42 Frank 10, Manny Martinez, and his trainee, his PPD. Manny goes through the firefighters. He grabs me by my vest, by my shirt, pulls me to his Tahoe, and I drew a blank after that. I don't remember anything or anyone after Manny got me to his Tahoe. And I will say this. I'm sure you and your family may have experienced this with the tragedy of your dad. When I tell you the whole command staff was there, they were all there. I learned that we had 2 homicide units, 2 squads. That's 12 investigators. We had Harris County cars from Little York and 45 all the way down to, I don't even remember the name of the street, not Fulton, put it to you this way. It was 2 miles away from the apartment complex. And you saw nothing but Harris County cars. All my supervisors that were there, deputies were there, our crime reduction unit were there from 3 different districts. Intelligence was there. And I remember them asking me where Judy was. She was home. She didn't go to work that day. My youngest son and my youngest daughter were also home with her. They sent 2 cruisers to pick her up, bring her back to the crime scene. And I remember telling Judy I was sorry. Never told her that Darlene was gone. I remember telling her that I was sorry. And she knew. We all knew at that point. That was the worst day of my life. And I can still remember the scene to this day. 3 years after that day, on April 11th, 2023, we started the trial of the person who killed my daughter.
And it was her boyfriend at the time, correct?
Ex-boyfriend.
Ex-boyfriend.
Yeah. He was found in North Carolina with his mother, hiding. He was subsequently brought back to Houston, released on bond, and for 3 years, he walked this earth like there was nothing wrong.
That's so wrong.
April 11th, 2023, his trial started, and on his birthday, April 24th, he was found guilty of first-degree murder and sentenced to 40 years. And that's where he is now. Yeah, I've had a few things happen to me over the last several years. Losing a child. No parent expects to bury their child. And I did. Yeah. I was running from a lot of things. Not just that, but just before that, August 7th, 2017, I lost my dad. July of 2018 was my divorce. April 30th, 2020 was my daughter's death. So at the September 15th, I was running from a lot of things. And
that's on top of the stress of the job.
let's not even talk about the job. This job brings a lot of trauma. But the hardest thing is trauma, but bringing the personal life into the business life. It's hard. That's why we have to take care of ourselves up here. This is the most important thing, your mindset. If you lose your mindset, you lose your soul. You got to keep this to keep you. And that's why I am in the behavioral health training unit for the last 4 years. I've been teaching about mental health. Mm-hmm. As a member of the peer support group and the hostage negotiation team, I talk to employees as well as anybody who needs someone to listen. And my experiences in life and on the job, to me, gives me a different perspective. I've seen the negative things in life and how this job can really bring you down. It can really leave you in a bad place. But I also know that this job can also bring the good out of you if you allow yourself the opportunity to get help. Mm-hmm. And that's what this is all about, getting help.
And what would you recommend for all those other officers that are out there who have had similar experiences, who have buried all of this trauma for so long, whether it's in their job or at home? Most of the time it's both, right?
Yeah.
What would you recommend to them to the first step to getting help, right? Because you have experienced both ends, right? You've experienced trying to cope in unhealthy ways. You've experienced actually fighting through and coming back from some of these tragedies, right? So I think you're a great person to be able to speak on that. So, like I said, what would you say to those officers or those first responders?
Get help. Talk to someone. It's okay not to be okay. We're human beings. We're no different than the people we take care of and we serve every day. How can we be there for our families if we're not there for ourselves? Talk to someone. Reach out. One thing I've learned is that I know I joke that I like to talk a lot, but I've also talked to the right people. And I'm not afraid to say that I've had to talk to therapists. I've had to talk to peer support. I have a lot of people that I've, over the last few years, have been there for me, just listening. Not to give advice, just to listen. Get all that off your chest. You have to release that stress somehow. Exercise. Eat right. But more than anything else, talk to someone. You have to talk to someone. You have to get that out. Mm-hmm. And the only way to get it out is by talking. Share what you are feeling with someone else. And if you don't want to, I know the stigma. But if I talk to somebody at the office or if I talk to the behavioral health division, they're going to tell my supervisor, they're going to tell my captain that I don't want to lose my badge and gun.
Better than losing your mind.
It's better than losing your soul. Yeah. And no, even myself with the peer support group, we're bound by confidentiality. Unless you're talking about committing suicide or homicide, it stays between me and you. As a matter of fact, on my way here, I was just talking to someone in the car who needed someone to talk to. Just listen. Find someone that you can talk to. Even if it isn't another police officer, talk to someone. Talk to anyone that will listen to you. What I've learned as a hostage negotiator is that more than half of the times that a person has gotten into a barricaded situation is because he didn't have a solution to his problem. He didn't have someone to talk to. Mm-hmm. And unfortunately, one of the things, or one of the decisions that are made by those who don't have someone to talk to is suicide, because they're in such a dark, dark place. And yes, I have been there. And yes, my faith has gotten me to a point where I can function again. But you have to talk to someone, anyone. Get the help you need. Talk to, in our agency we have a behavioral health division that specializes in nothing but clinicians. Dr. McNeish, Dr. Kelly. We have 4 or 5 other clinicians, licensed professional counselors that will listen to you, that can help you. And it stays there. When they close that door, no one else knows about it. Talk to someone. Unfortunately, at the sheriff's office, we've had a rash of suicides.
So was it like 7 in the span of 6 months or something like that?
6 weeks.
6 weeks. 6 weeks. Wow.
Yeah. That's a dark place to be in. That is a permanent solution to a temporary problem. I know it sounds cliche, but that's exactly what it is. Yeah. It's a very temporary, very permanent situation or a solution to a temporary problem, talk to someone. You know, it's nothing for me to be on my phone at 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning talking to someone, and me getting up at 4:30 to go to work. But I'd rather do that than to go to someone's funeral.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, we've had way too many funerals.
Way too many.
Way too many. Please take the opportunity to talk to someone. Give us an opportunity to help. That's all I ask.
And I know that out of personal experience too, right? My dad was a police officer for 20 years with the Harris County Sheriff's Office, and I know how after my dad passed, we've realized how much he was kind of shielding from us and how much he wasn't sharing with us because the nature of the job, right? He didn't want us to worry, and at the same time, I'm sure he was someone who had a lot of difficulties opening up about his problems and the things that he struggled with, right? He was always that rock. He was always the one that, other people went to, so he had to just be okay, right? But I know from personal experience that doesn't help the family, As much as you think you might be protecting them or shielding them, it doesn't help the family when you don't actually know what's going on. You don't know why they're in the mood that they're in. You don't know what what they're bringing home. You can feel the energy, but you're not hearing anything, right? And
You're not understanding.
yeah,
And we've actually gone to a point now where we suggest that you talk to the family. We suggest, Darlene's mother was really good at asking how my day was. Because unfortunately, every time I told her it was just another boring night, or I fell asleep behind another school, which my supervisor didn't hear that, by the way. I could have swore I saw you on the news this morning, and you had your rifle around your shoulder. Oh, you saw that? Oh, it was nothing. I was just hanging out with the boys. Yeah, but they were running about somebody getting killed. Oh, yeah. Well, I was just helping them out. They needed help, and share those experiences with the family. Let them know what you're going through. We say, you're not alone. Yeah, you may be the one wearing the badge, but the family also goes to work with you every day and comes home with you every day. And they have to deal with the way you're handling the stress of this job. Talk to them. You'll be amazed at what your family will accept, what they'll understand. And you might even get a little bit more support at home.
yeah. You might be running from the thing that you need the most. You might be avoiding what would help you the most, and
That's
a lot of
family.
the times it is the people who love you and care about you the most
Yeah.
that you should be leaning on. And for me, I know out of personal experience, when I lost my dad, I did a very similar thing. I ran from everything. I was avoiding everything. I isolated myself, and that's the only period in my life that I've really struggled with my mental health, and that's because I detached myself from all of my support system, from all the people who helped me be me, right? And it wasn't until I reached out to them, it wasn't until I talked to them, until I admitted everything that I was going through, everything I was doing wrong, everything that was hurting me, that I was able to move past it and I was able to grow from it. And so I know exactly how important that communication is, and it can change everything.
It can make you or break you.
Yeah.
We use that expression a lot in our job. It'll make or break you. But it really will. You have to talk. You have to communicate. One of the things that you'll see about most first responders, we have an alpha A-type personality. Where we can handle anything. I got this. Don't worry about it. It's taken care of. And we go head first. Or sometimes gun first. Or baton first. Or car first. And We handle the business. We take care of the job. We do what we got to do. We show composure. You don't see us crying on. We don't cry. Cops don't cry. Cops don't. We don't cry. That's for babies. That's for women. No, we're human too. And the sooner you realize, guys, that you're a human being just like everyone else, the sooner you'll be able to handle some of the stuff that you've had deep down inside for a long time. Mm-hmm. And like you said, I was running. I was running. I didn't want to face a lot of things. One thing I didn't want to face was death. Yeah. That's the hardest thing to face, and I've seen so much of it in my career, in my lifetime, more than any human being should experience. But I'll say this. It's the same human beings that will help you get through what you're going through, if you give them a chance. It's amazing. I've come across some really good people over the last few years.
So
your family being one of them.
I was about to say, you're one of them.
Yes. Your family's amazing. And I use that word quite often because in the face of the worst possible day in a human being's life, the darkest, absolutely worst moment in your life, light comes from that. And like you said at the very, very beginning, God puts people in certain places at certain times for a certain purpose. And when you allow yourself to be run or used the way He sees fit, it's amazing the positive results you can get. Mm-hmm. And that's what I'm hoping we do. Yeah. We get some positive results.
Me too.
That's all we can wish for.
Me too. Honestly, I think that is the perfect place to end it, right? Like, that's exactly why we're here.
Yeah.
And we're going to continue to do everything that we can, right? Sharing our stories, showing, I think that's a huge step, right? You coming out and just expressing everything that you've gone through, all the pain, and also providing solutions for how you've gotten through it, right? Like, those stories, those messages are what can really inspire change.
I hope
right?
so.
And that's what we're going for here, right? If this can just help, like you said, 1 to 2, just one
person,
right?
one person,
we'll be happy.
We have successfully completed our journey.
Yeah.
And of course, if we don't want to stay with one.
Yeah, we won't.
But we're going to keep going. And later on, if you want to throw my phone numbers out there, but by all means, I mean, if it's not already out there, you can put it out there. 'Cause I promise you, I get phone calls, and I don't have a problem listening to people because I've had someone to listen to me, and I've had some very good people listen to me. That's all we can do. Just give it our best shot, and hopefully this works. The only way to do it.
All right, man. Well, we're gonna end it there. Thank you so much again for being on the show. I can't thank you enough. You did amazing, man.
Thank you for letting me be here. It's like
nice job.